The film begins at a party where a married couple is dancing together. We are introduced to the husband, Matt, who works as a lawyer, and his wife, Katrina, who is a businesswoman. They continue talking, and he asks her to cancel her trip so they can spend time together, but she replies that she has very important work in Los Angeles and must go to handle it. While they are dancing, a friend of theirs named David arrives and starts joking with them. He tells Matt that Katrina only likes to dance with him, then takes her and dances with her, thanking her for inviting him to the party. Through their conversation, we learn that they have been friends since their college days, and that David used to love Katrina, but she chose to marry Matt. Shortly after, Matt returns to continue dancing with Katrina, while David steps away to answer a phone call. He then comes back and informs them of the news that Kyle Medford has been murdered in his home. Immediately, David leaves the party and rushes to Kyle's house, where he discovers that he was killed in a very brutal way. He becomes convinced that the killer had a motive of revenge and anger, and that it was not just an accident. They continue investigating the crime scene and find an antique axe covered in blood, realizing it is the murder weapon, so they take it to lift fingerprints. David keeps searching the house until he finds a small silver box containing hair. When he tries to read what is written on it, he cannot, because it is written in Chinese, so he decides to keep it as it may lead him to something important. After that, he leaves to meet a friend, and together they head to Chinatown, where they meet a man named Mr. Wong. They ask him whether the box was sold from his shop, and he tells them it is made of very rare, high-quality silver and that it was indeed sold there, but he does not remember who bought it or their description. However, he explains that this type of gift is usually bought by a wealthy man for a woman he loves. When they ask him about the Chinese word written on it, he tells them it means jade, but they do not understand what that means. Meanwhile, Katrina travels to Los Angeles for her work, carrying a newspaper that reports Kyle's death, and she seems very interested in learning everything about it. Then we see Matt and David at Kyle's funeral, as he was a mutual friend. There, Matt tells David that this is an important opportunity for him and that he should find out everything about the case, as it could lead to his promotion to district attorney. David responds that he will try to reach the truth, not for the position, but for justice. The next day, we see David at the office while the police clear out the contents of Kyle's apartment. They are shocked to find photos of the governor of California with a woman in compromising situations, which leads them to believe that these photos could be the reason behind Kyle's murder. David takes the photos and goes to the governor's office, asking to speak with him privately. When the governor sees the photos, he becomes extremely angry and admits that Kyle was a despicable man who blackmailed people and ran a network of immoral activities involving public figures, secretly recording them and later blackmailing them. After his confession, he threatens David, saying that if he reveals anything about these photos, he will ruin his future and ensure he never works in California again. Afterward, David returns to the office, where his boss Cliff tells him that the governor is furious about what he did. David insists that this is part of his job and that he is not afraid, but Cliff decides to remove him from the case. David refuses, but promises to keep him updated on everything, and Cliff agrees on the condition that he does not go behind his back again. After the conversation, David goes to another investigator named Vasco to ask about the identity of the woman in the photos. Vasco tells him she is a prostitute named Patrice who had previously been imprisoned. He also informs him that investigations revealed Kyle owned a house on a remote island, which he used for his illegal activities. They head there and find the house equipped with many cameras, clearly used to record important figures with women in order to blackmail them later. While searching, they find a burned tape in the fireplace. Vasco takes it and says the forensic lab may be able to recover part of it to determine its contents. Later, David, Vasco, and a third investigator named Henderson go to speak with a neighbor near Kyle's island house. They show him photos of several suspected women, and he points to Patrice, confirming he has seen her there before. Immediately, David and Vasco go to find Patrice and discover she works at a barbershop in Chinatown. They go there, but she runs away as soon as she sees them. They chase her, and David eventually manages to catch her and take her to the police station. There, she starts shouting and threatening to call her lawyer, but David tells her that she has photos with the governor of California and that she was seen multiple times at Kyle's house. If the truth comes out, she will be the one who suffers. He then leaves her alone, which frightens her and pushes her to confess everything. She tells him that she met Kyle at a party, and he offered her a large sum of money to work with him as one of the women he provided to important figures. She mentions that he often talked about a woman named Jade, but she had never seen her clearly, only once from behind, and that all the politicians requested her, even the governor himself. She knew she was being recorded but could not object. After the interrogation, David leaves, but he is targeted in an assassination attempt when he discovers that his car brakes have been tampered with. He loses control and gets into a severe accident, and is taken to the hospital, where it becomes clear that someone tried to kill him. Despite Cliff's warning to drop the case, David refuses and insists on continuing. After returning to the station, one of his assistants informs him that a fingerprint was found on the axe, and it belongs to a woman named Katrina Maxwell. David is shocked because she is Matt's wife. He decides to verify this himself and goes back to the neighbor, showing him more photos. The neighbor identifies Katrina and confirms he has seen her there before. David then goes to Matt and tells him that Katrina's fingerprints were found on the murder weapon. Matt responds that this is normal, as she used to visit Kyle for work related to searching for a painting by an artist named Matisse to display in their museum, and that this is not evidence. However, David insists on questioning her, while taking their past relationship into account, and decides to interrogate her at her home instead of summoning her to the station. That evening, David goes with Vasco and Henderson to Matt and Katrina's house. Katrina tells them that she visited Kyle a day before his death, and that he showed her a new axe and asked her to hold it to feel its weight, which is why her fingerprints might be on it. When Vasco asks if she touched anything else, she mentions an African mask but is not sure. The investigators continue asking questions about witnesses and whether her husband was home when she returned, until David asks whether there was any relationship between her and Kyle. Both Matt and Katrina become angry at the question and declare that the investigation is over at that point. After that, the three investigators leave and return to the police station, where a major surprise awaits them. The forensic expert informs them that he managed to recover part of the burned tape they found in Kyle's island house. When they watch it, they discover it is a video showing Kyle with Katrina, which deeply confuses David and confirms to him that Katrina is involved. However, before he takes any action, his assistant tells him that Patrice has called and wants to meet him at a cafe, giving him the address. David agrees, realizing she must have new information. He immediately heads there and waits for her. When Patrice arrives, she is outside the cafe, and while crossing the street, she is hit by a car, which then runs over her again to make sure she is dead before fleeing. David quickly reacts, asks bystanders to call the police, then gets into his car and chases the fleeing vehicle. The pursuit becomes extremely difficult due to a Chinese street celebration blocking the way, but he continues at full speed until he reaches an empty area. Suddenly, the car disappears, only to reappear from an old warehouse and crash into him from the side, causing his car to fall into the water while the other car escapes. Afterward, David goes to the morgue, where he meets Henderson, who blames him for not listening to warnings and stepping away from the case. An argument breaks out between them, and David accuses him of working for the governor, but Vasco intervenes and separates them. Later, they regroup with the rest of the investigators, and Henderson insists that Katrina is the killer, citing the lack of an alibi, her fingerprints on the axe, and her appearance in the video with Kyle despite denying any relationship. Investigations also revealed that she owns 3 cars, one of which matches the description of the vehicle that killed Patrice. Based on this, Cliff decides to summon Katrina for questioning. Katrina arrives accompanied by Matt, acting as her husband and lawyer. They show her the video with Kyle, shocking Matt, who denies it is her and claims it is just someone who looks like her. However, Henderson pressures her with questions about her whereabouts the previous night and the condition of her car, until she finally admits she is the woman in the video. She insists it was just a moment of weakness but denies any involvement in Kyle's murder. When asked whether she is Jade, she denies knowing that name and says she only visited the house once, suggesting they ask the girl who confessed. They inform her that the girl has been killed and that she is now also a suspect in her murder. At that point, Matt stands up, declares they are leaving, and demands that the investigators file formal charges if they have evidence, as they will not attend informal questioning again. When they return home, a heated argument breaks out between Matt and Katrina. He accuses her of betraying him, but she responds that she is not the only one and that she has proof of his repeated infidelity, whether in his office or at home. She explains that she remained silent all this time and tells him that if he wants a separation, it is his right. Meanwhile, David is at home reflecting on everything that has happened when Katrina unexpectedly visits him. She tries to get close to him and tells him she knows he still loves her, but he questions her about betraying Matt. She admits it was a mistake and that she never expected things to escalate, and again insists she had nothing to do with Kyle's murder. She asks him to forget the past, but he refuses, causing her to leave angrily. Right after she leaves, David receives a call informing him that Cliff has been murdered in his apartment. He rushes there and finds he was killed brutally. His assistant tells him that everyone who dealt with or saw Patrice is being eliminated to keep them from talking about the governor. David realizes Katrina may be next and becomes worried about her. He quickly returns home to call Matt and Katrina, but is surprised to find Matt already there, threatening him with a gun and asking if he has a relationship with Katrina. David denies it and tells him there is no time for this because Katrina is in danger. At the same time, Katrina returns home and calls out to the maid but receives no response. She searches and finds the maid murdered. Then she hears someone inside the house, so she runs and tries to hide while attempting to call Matt. Meanwhile, Matt and David rush to the house to save her. They arrive just in time to find an unknown man trying to kill her, and a gunfight breaks out. It turns out the man is Henderson. A violent confrontation follows between him and David until Matt intervenes and shoots Henderson, killing him. They then make sure Katrina is safe. After that, David goes to confront the governor and tells him everything that happened, explaining that Henderson was trying to protect him by eliminating anyone who knew the truth. However, the governor denies any connection, saying there is no evidence against him and that Henderson may have acted on his own. He also denies any involvement in Kyle's murder. David offers him a deal. He will leave him alone in exchange for staying away from Katrina and not harming her. The governor becomes angry, refuses, and threatens him, but David counters by threatening to expose the photos if anything happens to Katrina. Meanwhile, Katrina prepares to go out with Matt, but is shocked to find photos of herself with several politicians laid out in front of her. She breaks down in tears, confused by Matt's actions. When she asks him where he got the photos, he tells her he obtained them from Kyle the day before his murder. She realizes that he is the one who killed Kyle, and he admits it, justifying his actions by saying Kyle was blackmailing him and he would never allow anyone to destroy his life. He then approaches her and tells her that next time she is with another man, she should introduce him to Jade, because she will surely be better than Katrina. He then leaves, while Katrina remains in shock, crying after everything has been exposed, and the film ends there.